Welcome to our deep dive today, and we are going to be looking at attachment theory.
Oh, very exciting.
Yeah, it's something that I think we can all relate to in different ways. We form attachments throughout our lives,
Absolutely.
whether they're with our parents or our siblings or our friends or our partners
And our children even.
and our children. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think this will be really interesting to sort of look at, like, where does this come from
Yeah.
and how does it manifest?
Yeah. And how do we deal with it in our relationship?
Exactly. Yeah. How do we deal with it in our relationships?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the best place to start is with, like, well, who is it that kind of first brought this whole idea of attachment to light?
Well, that would be John Bowlby,
Oh,
a child psychiatrist working back in the 1930s.
okay.
And he was observing children separated from their parents.
Okay.
And what he saw really challenged the prevailing assumptions at the time.
Interesting. Okay. So, like, what was the common thinking back then?
People believed that a child's need for their parents was primarily about basic survival.
Okay.
Food, shelter, that sort of thing.
Right.
But Bowlby's observations suggested something much more profound was at play.
Okay. So it wasn't just about, like, the physical needs being met. There was something else going on.
Exactly.
Okay. So what did he observe?
Well, he noticed that these children, even when their physical needs were met, they exhibited intense distress when separated from their parents,
Wow.
as if like their very sense of security was just shattered.
Yeah.
And he realized that children have this innate drive to form attachments.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about physical needs, but about emotional needs,
Right.
comfort, security, and feeling safe and loved.
It's so interesting because I think back to, like, my own childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I, can definitely remember, like, feeling, certain ways depending on my parents.
Mm-hmm.
If my mom left the room, even if she was just going to the kitchen or something, like that feeling of, like,
Yeah.
oh, where'd she go?
Yeah.
And like that need to have her there and be close to her.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to how revolutionary Bowlby's ideas were at the time.
Yeah.
Because they really laid the foundation for this entire field of attachment theory.
Wow.
So
And that's what we're talking about today.
exactly. And, Bowlby observed this powerful need for attachment.
Right.
But how did he explain how those attachments develop?
Right. Like, what's the process?
Well, he outlined 4 distinct phases of early attachment development,
Okay.
each marked by specific behaviors and growing cognitive abilities in the child.
Okay. So let's hear, what are those 4 phases?
So the first phase is pre-attachment.
Okay.
This spans from birth to about 6 weeks.
Okay.
Think of a newborn. They instinctively try to attract attention through crying, smiling, making eye contact, seeking that connection.
Yeah.
But they haven't yet formed a strong preference for one specific caregiver.
Okay. So they're just kind of like taking it all in.
Exactly. They're just taking in the world around them at that point. Then comes attachment in the making,
Okay.
from about 6 weeks to 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
Now infants start to differentiate between familiar and unfamiliar faces
Okay.
and begin to develop trust in their primary caregivers.
So that's when they're really starting to form those special bonds.
Yes, and this leads us to clear-cut attachment from 6 to 8 months to about 18 months.
Okay.
The attachment to the primary caregiver becomes incredibly strong.
Right.
You start to see separation anxiety emerge as the infant protests being away from their primary caregiver.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe getting anxious around strangers, too.
Yeah, I think every parent knows that feeling of their heart breaking a little when their child cries as they leave the room, or
Exactly.
tries to cling to their leg as they're trying to walk out the door.
It speaks to the depth of the connection that's formed.
It really does.
And finally, we reach the formation of reciprocal relationships,
Okay.
starting around 18 months and extending into the toddler years. Children start forming attachments to other caregivers beyond the primary one.
Okay.
Dads, grandparents, siblings.
Right.
They also begin to understand that separations are temporary, that the caregiver will return.
So they develop a more sophisticated understanding of relationships.
Exactly. Now, throughout these phases, Bowlby observed that how caregivers respond to their infants plays a huge role in shaping the child's understanding of relationships.
Okay.
He called this understanding the internal working model.
Interesting. Internal working model.
Which is such a crucial concept in attachment theory.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this internal working model. What does that mean?
Think of it like this. Imagine a young child experiencing consistent loving care. They learn to trust that their needs will be met,
Yeah.
that they are worthy of love,
Mm-hmm.
and that the world is a safe place.
Right.
This forms the basis of their internal working model, a mental blueprint that shapes their expectations about relationships throughout life.
So those early experiences kind of create a template for how we approach relationships. Exactly, even decades later.
Precisely. And on the flip side, if a child experiences inconsistent or unresponsive care, they might develop a belief that their needs don't matter or that they can't rely on others.
Right. So it shapes how they view themselves and how they view the world.
Absolutely. And it's this internal working model that Mary Ainsworth, a developmental psychologist, sought to understand more deeply.
Oh, so she kind of took the torch from Bowlby and went from there.
Exactly.
Very cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about Ainsworth. So she wanted to really dive into these patterns.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She was particularly interested in how different patterns of attachment play out in early childhood.
Okay.
To do this, she developed this fascinating experiment called the strange situation.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of this.
Yeah.
So it's like they observe how infants react when they're separated from and then reunited with their mothers.
Exactly. In this experiment, Ainsworth would observe how a child reacted when their mother left the room and then how they responded when she returned.
Right.
It provided a window into the child's internal working model, their understanding of relationships and how they seek comfort and security.
Yeah, how fascinating.
Yeah.
So what did she find? Did she find distinct attachment styles?
She did.
Okay.
Based on her observations, Ainsworth identified 3 main attachment styles.
Okay.
Secure, anxious resistant, and avoidant.
Okay. Let's break those down one by one.
Okay.
Let's start with secure attachment.
Okay.
What does that look like in the strange situation?
So securely attached child uses their mother as a safe base from which to explore the unfamiliar environment.
Okay.
They might show distress when she leaves, but they are quickly comforted upon her return.
Okay.
Easily soothed by her presence.
Yeah.
They trust that she will be there for them, and this trust allows them to navigate the world with a sense of confidence.
It's like they have that foundation,
Exactly.
like knowing that someone's there
Exactly.
to support them.
It creates a foundation for it. Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, someone with an anxious attachment style might bring more insecurity into the relationship.
Okay, so how does that manifest?
They might constantly seek reassurance from their partner.
Okay.
Worry about their partner's feelings.
Right.
Or get upset if their partner doesn't respond in the way they expect.
Yeah.
And this can stem from that early experience of inconsistent care, leading to a fear of being abandoned or not having their needs met.
Right, like they're always on edge a little bit.
It can.
Yeah.
And then you have those with an avoidant attachment style.
Okay.
They might have difficulty opening up emotionally, struggle with intimacy, or push their partner away when things start to feel too close.
It's almost like they're afraid of getting too close.
Yeah, that's often the underlying dynamic. Now, of course, it's not always this black and white.
Right.
People are complex.
Yeah.
And we can exhibit traits of different attachment styles depending on the relationship and the situation. Right? It's not like you're just one or the other.
Exactly.
It can even change in different circumstances. Yeah.
And it's important to remember that attachment styles are not fixed. Yeah. We can change and evolve.
That's good. That's reassuring.
It is.
So what can someone do if they recognize that their attachment style is creating challenges in their relationships?
Well, awareness is the first step.
Okay.
Understanding your attachment style and where it comes from can be incredibly empowering.
Yeah.
Therapy can also be incredibly helpful. A skilled therapist can help you understand your patterns, unpack the underlying beliefs driving those patterns, and develop healthier coping mechanisms.
So it's about kind of rewriting those old scripts.
Exactly. And there are also things you can do on your own.
Okay.
Practicing mindfulness can help you become more aware of your thoughts and emotions in the present moment.
Okay.
So you can catch yourself when those old insecure patterns start to surface.
So you can choose a different response instead of just reacting automatically.
Yeah. And communication is key in any relationship.
Yeah.
Learning to communicate your needs clearly and respectfully and really listening to your partner's needs can make a world of difference.
Absolutely. It's all about creating that safe space for open communication. Yeah.
And remember, building secure and fulfilling relationships takes effort from both partners.
It's a two-way street.
It's a journey, not a destination.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So we've talked about secure, anxious, and avoidant. But you mentioned that there was a fourth attachment style that was added later.
Yes.
The disorganized, disoriented.
Yes.
What's that all about?
So this style is characterized by a mix of avoidant and resistant behaviors, often accompanied by a sense of confusion or disorientation. These children might freeze, exhibit odd or contradictory behaviors.
Wow.
Or seem fearful of their caregiver.
So their behavior is kind of unpredictable.
Yeah, it's a little all over the place. And so what typically contributes to the development of this style?
Yeah, like where does that come from?
Well, disorganized attachment often arises from frightening or chaotic caregiving environments.
Okay.
It could be due to a parent who struggles with their own trauma or mental health issues, or a home environment marked by abuse or neglect.
Right, so there's some instability there.
Exactly. And in these situations, the caregiver might be both a source of comfort and a source of fear.
Right, because they need them, but they're also afraid of them.
Exactly.
Wow, that's got to be really hard.
It creates a tremendous amount of internal conflict and confusion for the child.
So it sounds like these attachment styles really have a profound impact on how we relate to others throughout our lives.
They really do.
But the good news is that we can change and grow.
Absolutely.
And develop more secure and fulfilling relationships.
With awareness, effort, and support, we can rewrite those old narratives.
I love that.
Yeah.
And learn to connect with others in healthier, more fulfilling ways.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a great place to end our deep dive today.
I agree. This has been so enlightening.
It's been my pleasure.
Thank you for sharing your expertise with us.
Of course.
And listeners, we'd love to hear from you what resonated with you most from our conversation today. Share your thoughts and experiences with us on social media. Until next time, keep exploring those fascinating patterns in your own life and relationships.